Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joy Lingerie with you today, and I have Billy Appleton from the Billy Appleton Band. Hi, Billy. And I do want to give a shout out before we get started to Luscious Moss Studio, owned and operated by Chad Quist in Edgewood, Washington. Does produce my music. So if you want to go on, type Joy Lingerie or Joanne Lingerie on YouTube, you can find my channel and listen away. But he does have a very creative and collaborative environment set up for basically he started out with drummers and guitarists, and now he's moved on for producing more and more recordings. So if you have any needs, give him a call. You can find him Facebook at Luscious Moss Studio or Chad Quist in Edgewood, Washington. And with that, we're ready to say hi, Billy. Tell me about yourself. I'd like to know how you got started. I happened to be at Razzles on Saturday night when Billy's band is playing. Oh my gosh, it was great. Just super. How did that all start, Billy?
You mean the existing band or for me musically?
No, just your musical background, from the time, however long it was ago when you picked up your first instrument. What was it?
I would say probably third or fourth grade. I started playing violin, actually.
The what?
Violin. I started playing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And actually, I went from violin to, I guess, seriously, I started playing the drums at about
the best players are former drummers. They are really.
I could get into a whole discussion about, how being a drummer has benefited me as a guitar player. But, so I would say, I played drums all the way through elementary school and then into stage band in junior high school. I think in my 7th to 9th grade years in stage band, I played primarily drums, but then in the last year of that, I switched to guitar. So I switched when I was about 14. I think I played bass for about 6 months, and then I started playing guitar, and then I've been a guitar player ever after that.
So when you first started, did that violin discourage you? I mean, if I'd have tried to play the violin first, I think I'd have gone a little crazy and forgot the whole thing.
Yeah, I think most kids start with piano and stuff. That seems to be sort of the traditional thing. Yeah. I wish that I would have started with piano because now I can see the correlation between, piano and guitar. And a lot of really good guitar players, can also play some piano.
Right.
I've never played piano. So yeah, violin was a little bit frustrating for me, but still valuable experience,
So if you want to look up on our comments, we've got people coming in here talking to us. Donald Malador is saying hi to you.
Hey.
And hi Rodney from the Hot Rodster Band is on here.
Oh yeah.
Rachel Hoover says hi. And somebody who just says hi Joanne, hi Billy, please put your name on there. We cannot see who you are and we want to greet you properly.
Oh.
So we were just talking about Billy's background. He started with the violin at a very early age and then moved on to drums and from drums to guitar. So by the time you got the guitar, I think you mentioned this, but I don't always remember all those details when you tell me. So where were you at when you started with the guitar? How old were you and who were your influences and what kind of music?
So I've been influenced by just a huge variety of different music. Like one of the hardest questions for me to answer is somebody asks me, who's your favorite guitar player? Right.
Yeah.
Because I've just been influenced by just so many people that I've always been able to find something of value in listening to everybody. So, it's just really difficult to answer that question, but I would say that, I listened to a lot of my first things that I was influenced by was stuff that I heard on the radio. Like I used to listen to KJR radio in Seattle. I don't know. Are you a native?
No. Oh, my husband would know this. I don't. He's
KJR, Seattle, Channel 95. I used to listen to that. And so whatever pop and stuff they played on the radio back then, I think, like, for instance, just as a memory that hits me, the first time I ever heard Sly and the Family Stone, right, was on KJR, And so when I heard stuff like that and James Brown and funk, and I wasn't exposed to the older blues stuff until later on. But then when I started listening to KZOK and KISW, and I started listening to more of the mainstream rock stuff, So I would say I was influenced by soul, Motown, funk, and mainstream rock and roll probably long before I was influenced by the blues guys. I got into more of the traditional blues guys later on down the road,
You use a different mode for blues, is that correct? When um, I don't know all the technical words for this stuff,
Well,
but there's certain scales that you play in different modes. Some people do, like rock uses one, country uses another, and blues. I have no clue how to play blues. I mean, I played with Billy Shoe. I played a few songs, but
right.
I don't really know. Is there a pattern to it, or?
I would say that just about every rock and roll guitar player that ever became famous was influenced by the blues guys first. I think that the British blues invasion, guys like Eric Clapton, they were directly influenced by the blues guys. Most of what they call classic rock today is just basically a reincarnation of what the blues guys did. A lot of the scales, a lot of the things are the same. It's a lot of that is interchangeable music. It's all what I would call blues based, if you pick a classic rock song or any classic rock band, like Bad Company or, any of them, even up through the 80s. I mean, Eddie Van Halen was blues based to a large extent. It all came from the blues. All of it stemmed from the blues. So a lot of that is interchangeable. A lot of those licks that you hear the great blues guys play are just the same rock and roll licks, except turned up higher in volume.
That makes sense, because when I was listening to you, there is, I listened to different blues players throughout the area, because I interview a lot of them.
Yep.
And I have to say that your blues was really upbeat. Even the younger generation that was in the Russell's room the other night, they were loving that music. They're loving it. And usually to me, I've never liked blues because when I hear it played, it's so slow and just not energetic. And I have a hard time with it. So yours is not, but maybe that rock and roll influence and your understanding of it is what gives that movement. I don't know.
Yeah, I like some of the more higher energy blues stuff. I do.
Yes.
Like Johnny Winter is one of my favorite players from back in the 70s. He was a great guy. And the more modern guys, of course, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I like Gary Moore. A lot of the ones that guys kind of get a little bit closer to the higher energy rock stuff. And then, of course, you have like the Allman Brothers Band, which Dickie Betts kind of weaved Western swing in with blues and rock and roll as well. But all of that music that I grew up with, I would say that basically the foundational building block of all of it was the blues.
Do you read music then? If you were playing the violin, you must read music, correct?
Well, I read music. I can read charts. I can read chord charts, for instance, like that. But if anyone asks me to read like single note stuff off of, that's hard for me to do. But if somebody tells me to play a G major 7, I can play it. I can read chord charts and stuff like that. But my music reading ability is not, as good as it should be.
Really, when you're playing the guitar, I just think, when you're playing the piano, you need that, right? Because unless you're playing by ear.
Right.
But, or if I don't know about violin, I've seen violinists until they memorize their music, reading it as well.
Sure.
But
right.
Every musician that I've played with or I know they hear it, they listen to it, and they pick out what key it's in, what's being played, and not me. I just listen and hope for the best. So we were now. Pardon? What? What was that?
I hope. Me too. A lot of times I have to listen and hope for the best. So
Exactly. Hi, Rosie. I got another gal that listens occasionally, not occasionally, almost every time.
right.
So, hi, Rosie. This is Billy. You got to hear him. He's really good. His band's great. I
Thank you.
saw him on Saturday night after I left uh, Doug Cooper's jam at the Crooked Label. So
Oh yeah.
I was blown away by this guy and his band. And yes, the sound man just keyed that music into where it was really stellar.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick Pearson is my sound man, and
Yeah,
he's like I refer to him as a member of the band because he keeps the sound, the volume levels in check,
absolutely.
and he's
Absolutely.
really good at it. And it's money well spent to have a good sound guy making sure that he's got the levels and the
Right.
mix correct. Yeah.
With if I thought I've always said this, if you have a bad sound man, you're gonna sound like crap.
Exactly. Yeah. Believe me, I've known from trying to run my own sound from stage over the
Yeah.
years. Yeah, and I got, I'm doing all the lead vocals, and the only guitar player now. We used to have a second guitar player. Now I go solo, and so there's a lot of stuff for me to think about, and if I don't have to worry about running sound, that's just one less thing that I have to
Yes.
mess with.
Yeah. And so we left you with guitar. Now you had just begun playing the guitar.
Right?
And where did you go from there? And when was your first paying gig? How long did that take?
Wow. I remember you were kind of giving me a preview of that question before. To be totally honest with you, I don't remember.
I'd remember my first paying gig because it'd be unusual.
I think I did so many non-paying gigs to start off with. I don't remember the first one that I actually got paid
Yeah.
for, But I think it was probably at a Grange Hall somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
for those who are local in the area, there used to be a place called Clearview Grange Hall. I think that one of our first paying gigs that I remember, I played in a band that played there. I think we got there.
The first time I got paid, I was I never took any of the money. The only every now and then I take it for paper or some whatever
Right.
advertise I need to do, but very little. And I paid my guys because I thought the wages sucked. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but they were paying bands. They've been paying them for the last 40 years.
Right.
Unless you get in a casino, and then that's another story. And I know your thoughts about that. So,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
so what kind of music were you playing at your first gig at the Grange? Do you remember?
Hard rock.
Hard rock.
Oh yeah. We were doing stuff like Black Sabbath and AC/DC.
Yeah.
And but we also did we had a bunch of quite a few original songs that we played too that were like hard.
Yeah,
But
that's a good segue into your writing. You are a singer-songwriter as well.
Yep.
I so far have not really had the time to sit down and listen to everything that you've written. I don't know if you have it anywhere or where I can find it, but what you sent me, I did listen to. So I don't know if those were originals or covers.
I did a
website. They're on your website.
Yeah, there's a couple of songs that I have on YouTube. I did a remake of Allman Brothers' Midnight Rider.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I played acoustic guitar on that, and it was sort of for those musicians out there, it was a drop D tuning. I tuned to E flat. I usually tune half a step down, and then it was a drop D tuning is what I used for that song. Yeah. And then I recorded that at Plum Tree Studios up in Stanwood.
Richard Williams.
Richard Williams, and then Chris Eager actually played. I think he played drums on that. Yeah, he played drums on that, but he also did an electric guitar slide guitar solo on that song too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did a great job on that, and those guys helped me out a lot. I did some recording with them last September.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Plum Tree, by the way, if anybody's listening. That's Roger Williams and Chris Eager are pretty active there. But it is Roger Williams' studio called Plum Tree. And it's in Mount Vernon?
No, it's Richard Williams and then in Stanwood.
What did I say?
I thought you said Roger Williams.
I probably did. I meant Richard. Correction. Okay, Stanwood. Okay, I didn't know it was
Yeah.
that
So
close
of
to
course,
Stanwood.
yeah, and everybody knows Chris Eager, and
Yeah,
Chris and Richard do the One Take Weekly out of that
right,
studio, and of course they host the jam at the jam on Wednesday nights at the
right.
Mirkwood in Arlington,
One take
and
weekly.
right, and they sort of work together as a team in that studio. And when I came in there, I didn't go in there as a full band. I did it just kind of as with myself and with
Mm-hmm.
Chris and Richard to help out.
Right, right,
Because what I was trying to do is I was trying to get together songs that were in the format that I wanted, that was a good enough recording uh, that I could play for the guys in my group to learn to go out and play
right,
live.
right.
Yeah. So at some point after we get all those songs learned as a band, we're going to go into the studio as a band and record all
Cool.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see those. Anyway,
Yeah.
he does have a website. It's called Billy Appleton Band, and he has all of these things posted on there, and then some. So that brings me to when you started playing guitar. You went to the Grange. Where'd you go from there? And when did you begin during this whole process writing your own music?
Well, I've been writing my own music for a long time. So in multiple genres, well, not multiple genres. I've never really got into the country genre much, and I didn't do much writing as far as like progressive, stuff like jazz rock fusion or anything like that. It was mostly all hard rock, and then later on, I started to get more into more of a blues influenced sort of
Yeah.
style. Yeah.
How how far down the line did it take to run into those blues people and the blues music?
Well, so it's kind of a hard thing to explain, but I was never really exposed to much straightforward traditional blues music, right? Um, it was mostly rock and roll. And a lot of the players that I play with, we didn't put the connection together back then that a lot of this rock and roll music was
Right.
actually just high energy blues stuff.
Ah,
That's where it came from. When I started listening to people like B.B. King and Freddie King and Albert King and uh, a huge list of stuff, Albert Collins, Taj Mahal, and then later on, Robert Cray, who's one of my biggest. When I started listening to some of these, Robert Johnson, um, uh, Buddy Miles, I mean, not Buddy Miles, but Buddy Guy, Howlin' Wolf. When I started to put this connection together, when I finally made that musical connection, that these are the guys that really started everything that rock and roll became. When the light bulb went on, it was like a huge, and really it was literally like, almost like day and night when the light bulb came on, and I just came to this huge realization, like, wow, all this stuff that I've been playing over the last, 10, 15 years, all this, even all the AC/DC stuff and the Black Sabbath stuff, and even Rush, for God's sakes, literally all this music came from the blues. And when I had that revelation, it just knocked me off my feet and just kind of changed the way I approached everything from then on. Then I started picking out all these guitar licks that these rock and roll guys were playing. And I began to look at them and say, oh, well, that's a Freddie King lick there. That guy just did a Freddie King, and oh, that guy, that's a Howlin' Wolf song. And then you look at bands like the Rolling Stones and other bands, like Cream, that came from the British blues invasion, and realize that these guys have been copying the blues guys for years and doing their songs.
I cannot. Yeah, I was listening when I listened to a lot of rock, like Manny Moraes and Lynn Sorensen
Mm-hmm.
do out
Yeah.
there, and that was the first time I ever heard live rock and roll like that.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time with trying to figure out what song it was. Now, Kurt, my husband, picked it up right away, but not me, because country has licks that when you hear that lick, you know what song it is and
Right.
what the dance beat is almost immediately.
Yes.
And it's a little harder for me to pick that up in rock and roll, or not rock and roll, but in any rock and roll or or blues even. So it's funny that you should say that there's identifiable licks in that music.
Oh yeah, very much so. A lot of
I
it is,
think,
like I said, a lot of it is a lot of it is interchangeable, especially in the older rock and roll. You know,
uh-huh.
yeah.
How old? How old is older rock and roll?
Well, I mean, Jimi Hendrix was basically a blues player, but
You
when
know,
he first came out and I first started listening to him, to me he was a psychedelic rock guy. You know, I didn't put the correlation together that he was blues until later on down.
until later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
friends of mine, older musicians, was go, oh, you know, Jimi Hendrix is just really playing the blues, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, that's no, he's a rock guy. You know, and
Yeah.
I used to think the same thing about Eric Clapton and everything, and I didn't realize that they were actually just uh, so heavily influenced by these original blues guys. You
Right.
know? So
Somebody was saying there's a squeak in our sound here, and I do hear it every now and then.
sounds like a
They ask,
bird.
huh?
Sort of sounds like a bird.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. Electronics, they do their own thing.
Yeah,
There's no musician out there who hasn't had that problem.
that's true.
So when did you actually start forming the band that you had now, and how long have you guys been playing together? I know the drummers knew.
So the Billy Appleton band in its present form has just been going recently since probably, well, I started about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I started with Mark Benzione, who was my other guitar player for many years.
Right.
And we went through probably 2 or 3 bass players and a couple of different drummers. And before we kind of finally settled on a format and a lineup. And then in the beginning of the year, Mark left the band, and Jim Donahue, who was who was the guy that was playing drums for us at the time, he got involved playing with some other players and some other groups, and I found John Sayer, who I'm using now.
John is very good.
You know, the guy is a monster.
Yeah, he is.
And all the guys, and I got to say this, you know, all the guys that play in my band are monster players. They're really, and they're just great musicians. They're great people. It's really rare, and it's really hard to find a group of guys who are all committed to basically playing to the very best of their musical abilities.
Yes.
all the time.
Your keyboardist and bass player, they do that. Can you tell us their name? Your keyboard.
Yeah, my keyboard player is Jeff Swanson, who's been a friend of mine for over 20 years. I've played with Jeff in a couple of different bands. He also plays keyboards. Him and his brother Steve play in a Beatles tribute band called Lonely Hearts Club.
Oh.
You may have heard of. They play locally. They're playing at the Evergreen State Fair here coming up. So yeah. And then Larry Greenleaf is on bass. I've known Larry for many years. And finally, after having kind of a business relationship with him for a while, because he ran his own construction company, and him and I always talked about getting together and playing. And I brought him in, and he started playing with us, and it was just an immediate fit. He's a veteran of the music scene. He's toured the East Coast and the West Coast and played with big horn bands and played with a lot of different people, and just has been around for a long time. Just really great, solid bass player, right?
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, he is.
Yeah. And then John Sayer, like I said, has been with us since probably, I think, last October. I found him on Band Mix.
Yeah, I know that. I am on there too. So
Just a stroke of luck, you know. I just he had an ad out there, and he was looking for people to play with, and so I answered the ad. He's from Las Vegas, Nevada, originally.
yes.
Lives in Marysville, and he's the youngest of the bunch.
Yes.
But I mean, he immediately came in and just had a huge impact. I mean, you know, you could just tell.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, this group of guys, and even group of guys I had before were like this, but this group of guys is unique in that they're not afraid. They don't shy away from doing the hard work of learning the songs, because there's a lot of material that we're doing that's not just run of the mill stuff that you can just get up there and play.
Yeah.
You have to work out your parts.
Yeah.
And they're willing to work out their parts and then come to rehearsal and put it all together. They're willing to do the hard work, and they play to the very best of their ability and the top of their game. And they were all 100% committed to making everything sound as the best that we can make it sound. And so I recall a couple of rehearsals ago, we had one particular song that we were going through that we were having some problems with. And I mean, we worked on that song for like an hour. I mean, over and over again, we're playing the same part and everything, you know, and it got to the point where I'm going, oh man, you know, but I mean, everyone kept saying, let's run it again. Let's run it again.
Yeah.
Going, okay, let's run it again. You know, when you run it again, and we did it until we got it right.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between playing with a group of guys that are doing that and then just getting up at a jam session and playing at a jam session, you know. And it's hard to find people that are committed to playing in that way. And I'm just really fortunate to be able to have guys around me that have that passion to do that. It's a rare thing.
Absolutely. So for 10 years, so that means that this band was up and running, maybe with a few different players, excuse me, during COVID. So how did that impact you and your band?
Well, it impacted us. You know, we were just kind of really getting up off the ground and going out and starting to make our name known when COVID hit, right? Yeah. I mean, and people in the music business around here, they've known who I was for a while, but this is kind of the first time that I've fronted my own band. I mean, I've been support player for other music projects, you know, but like I told you, you know, when you came out the other night, I'm not a very good self-promoter. You know, I kind of fly under the radar a lot of times. You know, I'm not real good about self-promoting myself. But
well, you know, a lot of that promoting, and I can tell you this for a fact, costs money. Just to learn what little bit that I know about promoting costs me $800 worth of lessons that ended up $1,000. I mean,
yeah,
it's not kind of cheap. And then when you go out and you put it on Facebook and you promote it from there or YouTube or whatever, that stuff adds up little by little. I mean, it's reasonable to start, but if you keep doing it, and there's a lot of free promotion too, but it's kind of hard. I have to say that there are so many people out there I've never even heard of that end up on my show. I didn't know you before this, and I think that's because we tend to be regional, and people down south know the bands down south. People up here through this area know the bands, but the people up north are less likely to be known.
Yeah, and I think that's typical with players who are primarily play locally, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're not lucky enough to have a national presence or something and you're a local player, I think that's very common.
Right.
You know.
Well, I think I've attracted a few bookers, and I know that they listen every now and then, but I would like to see a lot more out there because you know, it takes a lot to get your name out there, and the more you get it out there, the more likely you are to get listened to, because people, from what I can see, like people listen here, they'll be telling me all these different places that are looking for people to book, you know,
right?
Or this is a band you just got to go see and listen to. You got to interview these people. I mean, it's word of mouth is the biggest and best advertisement here in this area.
Yep, very often it is. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the prime reasons I started this, because it's so hard to get to know who you guys are. You know, what you're about, what's your musical background. You know, how do we know that? We don't. And, you know, you're not going to be saying that at a gig. You're not going to be giving your life history.
Yeah. Unless you want the place to clear out really fast.
True. Absolutely.
They want to hear music, though. Right. Yeah.
So when you look at where you've come from and to where you are today, are there any times that you can remember that were really, really good that allowed you to say to yourself, I'm on the right track, I'm doing what I should be doing?
Wow, that's a great question.
You're not the first to have to answer it.
Boy, You know, to be totally honest with you, totally transparent, there was a lot of times, there was a lot of things that went on back in those days that I don't remember as well as I should. There was a lot of, like a lot of people, a lot of musicians, I had my drug and alcohol phase, right, that I went through. And so there was a lot of that going on. And I think when I finally got sober, which was back in 1996.
Wow, that's fairly recent.
Yeah. I mean, I did a lot of drinking and drugging up until then. And, I've always been a musician. I've always, played and stuff like that. But when the fog lifted and the clarity finally came, I think that really kind of gave me the push to, kind of realize that, hey, I made a lot of mistakes early in my music career that I could, atone for now by just moving forward, And one of the big things for me is that I think that you need to be true to yourself always, and especially as a songwriter, you need to play the type of music that inspires you, and I don't know, at the age of 62 right now, I mean, I'm having more fun than I've had in my whole life playing music.
Yes.
I mean, literally, it's the best time of my life right now as a musician. I'm just having a lot of fun playing with the best group of guys I could play with. I think I'm playing my own personal self. I think that I'm at the top of my game right now as far as a guitar player and as a singer. And I think that the drugs and alcohol in my earlier years really kind of thwarted a lot of that stuff, So if I had some years to get back, that would have been great, but you got to move forward,
I'm kind of known as kind of a prude, and I don't know if you know Lynn Sorensen. He has a show in Duval. It's a jam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I wrote a rock song and I put it out there. I just put out, it's called Pieces One by One. I was challenged by Roger Fisher because I asked him, how do you write a rock song? So I used the country format, but the music is more rock.
Right. Right.
And he said, and Lynn said to me while I was jamming with him, he said, well, now you're going to find out what it's like to be drugging and drinking and busting stuff up, and using foul language. And
right.
I said, no, I didn't think so. I think those days are probably long gone, and probably a good thing I missed them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've listened to some old recordings of myself back in the days when I was drinking and drugging and everything like that. I mean, they were pretty bad,
Yeah. Oh,
and of course, you think you're playing great,
yeah.
And for years and years, I was always under the people always, the train of thought back then was like, oh, you always sound better after you've had a few beers. You always sound better after you've had a couple of bong rips. You always sound better after you've got something in you,
Yeah.
And it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not.
I have to stay sober because it's an ordeal for me to do all this stuff. I mean, it's just to go out there by yourself and have the courage to go out, put your stuff out there, to go on to jam and jam with people who have no clue what your music is. I mean, they may have a little inkling, but not really how to play it. Yeah. And then to also practice in a band and do the band thing, which I've done for the last 20 years. With a little break in between, but it takes a lot, and I don't think I could do that if I was drugging or drinking. I can't even imagine, but maybe youth has something to do with it.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a lot of things have changed in the club scene too over the last 40 years, right? I mean, you can't smoke in bars anymore.
Yeah.
The drunk driving.
Thank God. That was really nasty.
Yeah, the drunk. Oh yeah, I have old amplifiers and pieces of equipment that always smell like smoke. And then, believe it or not smoking in the bars, that's changed a lot of stuff around. But the other thing is that the drunk driving laws are really, really strict.
Killer. Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, we used to play from 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. The bouncers were throwing people out because nobody wanted to leave. And then there was always an after party to go to. And so you were up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning or longer. and then you would go to bed and sleep, and then get up the next night and you do it all over again. And that was your life, you know. And of course, yeah, I couldn't do that now. You know?
Not many of us could.
I'd be a zombie if I tried to do that now, you know.
So do you have a 5-year plan? I've gotten some strange responses from this question. I asked one person, and he was in the process of being extremely, extremely ill, to the point of probably losing his life at some point. I didn't expect that. I had no idea. But the idea is, and, you know, I don't know if I have 5 years left, but if I do, you know, so those 5-year plans are kind of crazy, but we always need some kind of goal to look at as far as where we're going to shift, where we need to shift and change things up. Do you have one? And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Well, again, that's a great question. I think the thing that I'd really like to try to do is I would like to try to put our band at least on the regional map more securely. You know, I'd like people to know who we are, and that's going to take some time to promote that, and to really get our name out and to start playing some, you know, more gigs. And we're on the road to doing that right now.
Right.
And it's a long road. You have to start somewhere. And we've had great responses from the gigs that we do play. Everybody seems to like
one of them.
Well, thank you very much. Everybody seems to like what we're doing. My intention is not to sell out. I think that people a lot of times will do things in order to play the gig, right? I want to stay true to myself. I want to stay true to the music that we're playing right now. That's another thing about the group of guys that I'm playing with. We've all kind of bought into to what we're doing, as to the style of music that we're playing. Right. The guys are very supportive of me and my songwriting and a lot of the original music that we're doing right now. I would like to eventually go into the studio with those guys and put out an album.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And and just get some more exposure, and that's kind of the direction that I want to go.
That sounds like a plan, Billy. Somebody says, I like Billy's attitude and story. Sounds like that we have some. Now, what was that? I like Billy's attitude and story. Sounds like me. We have to meet Rodney Hot Rodster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Rodney from the Hot Rodster Band. Yeah.
Yeah. He's crazy. That man.
Have you interviewed him yet?
I saw him at the Angel of the Wings Casino.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. that man is all over. And his music.
I've never seen their band play, but
you've got to do it.
Really, really great things about him and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think him and I come from kind of the same era and stuff. But I'd love to meet him and get out and catch one of their shows sometimes. But I've heard really good things about that band.
Yeah, one of the things that he does, and I think it's excuse me, I think it's just his personality, is that he draws the crowd in. He makes it sound like he's really there for you, and he's trying to get a response back from you.
Yes.
And he does it quite well. And he's also like you, on his country, but he likes his country fast, and I like it too.
I think people like the high energy stuff. I found they like that,
especially the younger people. I mean, they're not used to listening to these older kinds of blues and older rock and so forth like we were, but they have their desire to do it a little faster than way back then.
Well, I think that sometimes people get the wrong idea when you mention the word blues, and sometimes blues gets sort of a label put on it.
Exactly. I hear that. I understand that.
There is a lot of what I would call traditional blues music that is slower. And from an artistic point of view and from a traditional point of view, there's a lot of that music that holds a lot of value, you know. because that's where things started. And so
Right.
it deserves the respect it's due, I think. But a lot of times when people go out to a club and they want to dance, a lot of that music isn't conducive to that. Now, if you're playing to a blues purist crowd that wants to hear that type of music, then that's another thing.
That's right.
But I naturally, because of my rock and roll background, rock and roll, Southern rock, that type of thing, I gravitate to the more high energy blues based stuff.
I like that, and that's why I like your band. I didn't get bored. I didn't fall asleep. I was so tired. I thought I would, but I didn't. And I really enjoyed the rock quality of it. I mean, it was blues, but there was also just something that told me that you somehow came from a rock background, and I was right. So.
Well, we do a couple of Deep Purple songs, and Richie Blackmore was one of my favorite guitar players. And, a lot of people, they consider that guy to be a rock player. But if you really listen closely to Deep Purple, it's really closer to a blues band than anything else, especially in their earlier stuff. It's very blues influenced, very blues based. But of course, that band kind of evolved into, getting more of I would say, a rock and roll label than a blues, type of thing.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the same reason that people at the time might have wanted a little faster music, a little bit more energy out there to get rid of. You work in today's environment where there's, hard to get vacations and breaks and everything else. You want to go out and let it all hang out. And
right.
In all of your experiences, can you think back to a time when it was the worst thing that you ever happened to you while you were out playing?
You mean at a particular gig?
Yeah, it could be that or anything. Just something that gave you pause and said, "Oh no!"
Yes, I do.
One there.
Yes. Oh, yes. I have a good one. So years ago, I used to play in this band. I can't even remember the name of it, honestly. But we played, it was rock. It was a rock group. And there was a friend of the band that worked for a company that sold crystal, like fine crystal, like, for, you got to follow this because it's sort of, but you know what I mean by, like crystal chandeliers, bowls, stuff like that. So anyway, every single year they have their annual Christmas party. So this girl, she heard us play at a gig, and she said, "You guys would be perfect for playing at our crystal party." And so they have so they were having it at the Stouffer Madison Hotel in downtown Seattle. So we said, "Yeah, we'll do the gig." And so she went to her boss who was throwing this party, and they had us come in, and it was like on the top floor of the Stouffer Madison Hotel in Seattle. We had to load all of our equipment into the service elevator and go all the way to the top. And we get to the top up there and we start setting up and everything. And all of a sudden the people start arriving for this thing. And I mean, literally, this is a black tie affair. And these ladies are showing up in like these evening gowns, and these guys are wearing like tuxedos and all this sort of stuff. Me and my bandmates are looking at each other and going, are they going to really like what we're doing here? I remember the drummer saying, "Oh yeah, so-and-so hired us for this. They're going to love us," and I'm like, okay. And so then we get so when the people are there, then all of a sudden this girl comes up and she goes, "Okay, so before you guys start, we're going to give this award ceremony where we're going to give out the Queen of the Crystal, I guess it would, for the person that sold the most crystal for that year was going to get this award." And she goes, "She's probably going to want to come up after her award and dance with her husband. So we would love it if you guys could play a slow song." Well, we didn't really know any slow songs, right?
No.
We were a hard rock band. We were doing like Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult and, AC/DC and stuff like this, right? So anyway, we're looking at each other like, what's the slowest song we know? So he said, "Well, let's do Riders on the Storm by Jim Morrison and the Doors," right? So they get up there and she gets her award for the crystal, and her and her husband come out to the dance floor, and my bass player goes do 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 do, start at the beginning, and everybody's kind of looking around at each other like, what the hell is this, and I get up there, riders on the storm, down, 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 down. Riders on the storm, into this house we're born, and singing this stuff. People are looking at each other like, what the hell, And the lady and her husband, they just sort of start to do this little, dance. And finally somebody comes up, like a quarter of the way through it, and they're going, nah, just, so we stop. So at this point, we're looking at each other like, yeah, I think we got hired at the wrong gig. And so then when they asked us to play, of course, then we launched into our regular set list and everything. And it was a disaster.
Oh, no.
I mean, yeah, these people were like not into this at all. I mean,
no.
They wanted to hear Kool and the Gang and, whatever it was that they could Soul Train to.
Right.
This one girl was asking, do you guys have any stuff that we can Soul Train, play that funky music, white boy? And I mean, we were so far beyond, not knowing how to play any of that stuff. It was
no.
So anyway, I think we got 3 songs into it, and finally the guy came up and just said, stop, you guys are done.
No.
We don't want you here, and no, literally it was like that. It was really bad.
Thank God.
And so we're like, okay. And then they brought some DJ guy in there that set up his DJ equipment, and they played, Casey and the Sunshine, Casey and the Sunshine Band, and stuff like that, so people could Soul Train and dance. And the hard thing for me about it was that, they were not nice about it. They were pretty mean. And so of course we had no other alternative but to get really drunk. Because I mean, that was the logical thing to do. And so we loaded all our stuff up into the service elevator, and we're coming down in the service elevator, and they had just got done serving dinner, and there was this cart inside and we got off the elevator. There was this cart sitting there, and this cart had all these plates that were filled with their dinner food. It was prime rib. It was, baked potatoes that were all loaded and everything like that. So we step out of the elevator, and we're looking all around and everything like that. There's nobody there, right? So we just reach onto the plates, and we start grabbing chunks of, slices of prime rib and putting them in our pockets and everything like that. And then I think my bass player grabbed a hold of this great big baked potato that had everything on it. And he just hucks it against the inside of the elevator, and just it splatters all over the inside of the elevator. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. So I grab a baked potato, and we all reach up there, and we stuff baked potatoes to the inside of the elevator. And before anyone could show up, we loaded all our stuff out into the van, and down the road we were.
Did you get paid for that gig?
Barely.
Barely. Oh my gosh.
But we were so frustrated, and so our feelings were hurt, right? Because these people were not nice about it, and this person that booked us obviously had no clue what these people wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the most mismatched, crowds that I'd ever played for. And then of course you add alcohol to that, and that's how we responded. And so it wasn't my proudest moment as a musician for sure, but that's the truth.
The true rock band style, right? Accent.
It was like it was the Joe Walsh destroy the hotel room syndrome,
Now, I saw a plaque, something, I'm not sure where I saw it, but when I was interviewing Richard Williams and Chris Egger, I saw this plaque, and I said something to Chris about it. I said something about the Blues Society Award, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm almost sure your name was on there.
Yes. Yeah. Chris Eager and myself and Eric Rice, we were nominated for Best Male Vocalist.
So how do you get on something like that? What was that? What was the process for that one?
Somebody nominated me for that. I think Mary McPage might have nominated me for that. I think she said that she did. And other people obviously I think voted for me and stuff like that, and so that's how you get on that.
Oh, it's great.
Right. And then Chris Eager won. He won for best male vocalist.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be a hard one to come up against, I think.
Yeah. I know. I saw his name on there, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
No, because he's a really talented guy, man, and he's like one of the. I kind of put him in the younger group of. He's the younger sort of group of musicians who are kind of up and coming, and he's having some really great success. Yeah. And I personally don't think that he's getting as much. I don't think that he's having as much success as he should be. I think that for as good as he is, I think he should be getting more accolades because he's just a really talented guy, and he's a great multi-instrumentalist, and he's got a really great band, and he's a great singer and a great guitar player and showman. And if you've ever had a chance to see him do the One Take Weekly thing, well, you were even telling me, right? You got up and played with him or something, and in 2 seconds he had it kind of figured out. Yeah. He's one of those guys that you can name off a song, and say, "Hey, do you know how to play this?" And he's like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, I do know how to play that."
He was struggling. I'll tell you, he struggled a little.
But most of the time he can just launch right into it,
Country is probably something he doesn't hear a lot. I don't, but I heard him at a winery. This little beautiful little place in La Conner on the river there, or whatever that is, and that water thing is in the background. And he played.
Yeah, I think that's the La Conner. Isn't that the summer concert series?
No, I don't. I really think it was just him booked for that night.
Ah, okay.
And he had country. He had a lot of country in there, good country. And that was the first time I really saw all of his talent. His dad was there. I got to meet him.
Yeah, Randall, his dad. He's a talented guy. He's a talented musician too.
Yeah, and he shows in his son. And last night I was out at Mirkwood, and I got to meet the band out there. Jacob and his wife Anna, I think, or Annie. I'm not sure which one. I called her Timber, so I don't know. Anyway, they're also very good. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
so much talent up there, and we didn't get to see it that often down here.
Yeah, there's a lot of good musicians, man. There's a lot of really good local musicians around and stuff that are great players and have a lot going for them. So
what gigs do you have coming up, and how do we get to it? I know you have posted on your website, correct?
Yeah. So usually what I'll do is I'll get on Facebook, and I'm working on other ways. Mark, my other guitar player who was with the band for a long time, he was kind of the media promotions guy. He did a lot of that technical stuff that I don't have the knowledge to do. So I've had to hire somebody to do that now. But I will post, I'll put posters out for the gigs coming up on Facebook usually, and a couple of different times. And then of course, www.thebillyappletonband.com, and that has our upcoming shows page on it. It'll show everything that we got up there so far that's coming up. This coming Friday, we have at 8:00 we're playing the Stanwood Eagles Club up there, right next to the fairgrounds, and it's also the weekend of the Stanwood Camino Island Fair, so there'll be a lot of people up there.
Okay.
And then the very next night, on the 5th, Saturday night, we're playing at the Big Lake Bar and Grill. The next weekend, I'll be on a short vacation. The weekend after that, we're going to be playing on the 18th. We'll be playing up in Burlington for the City of Burlington Summer Concert Series up there off of Fairhaven in Burlington. That'll be an outdoor gig from 6 to 8. And then the next day on the 19th, we're doing a private party. And then let's see, I'm going off of memory here. September 8th, we'll be at Ingles Pub in Edmonds. Got my good buddy. I'm sorry. September 2nd, we'll be up at the beach at Birch Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Beach bar up in Birch Bay up there on September 2nd.
Yeah.
If you've never had a chance to go up there, that's
I'll try to get there. That's called Beach Bay, and it's
it's Birch.
Is it on the water? What's it called? Birch Bay?
It's Birch, called the Beach Bar on Birch
Beach Bar.
in
Okay, got
Birch
it.
Bay. Yeah, yeah, it's a wonderful music venue. We played up there back on Memorial Day weekend, and it was just insane. It was so cool.
Yeah, Chris has Patron, and it's a site where you pay every month. You contribute money, and then you get the inside story of One Take Weekly, etc.
Yeah, right.
And he had a thing that he invited all his patron contributors to go up there, and of course it rained and it was cold, but I never got to see it. But I still want to go up there, so I will.
Yeah.
Get that information and use it.
Yes.
So
yeah, we're playing there the second of September, and then September 8th will be at Ingles, and then I'll have my good friend Jim Bond.
Which Ingles?
And Edmonds.
Okay.
Ingles Pub.
Okay.
Yeah, and my good buddy Jim Barnes is going to be playing keyboards with us for that gig. And if you've never heard Jim play keyboards, he's a wonderful keyboard player.
I'll have to look into that.
Yes, and then I forgot to mention, so Jeff, my usual keyboard player, he'll be playing with his band on his Lonely Hearts Club, which is the Beatles tribute band. He'll be playing with them at the Evergreen State Fair on September 2nd. That was a conflict. He'd already committed to that gig. Yeah. So I'm going to use another keyboard player, a guy named Norm Peterson, who I've never played with before, but Norm is one of those guys whose reputation just kind of precedes him. He's a well-known, really great keyboard player. He's going to play with us up at the Beach Bar up at Birch Bay.
All right.
Yeah.
So you'll find those dates on his website, www.billyappleton.band.com.
Yeah, www.thebillyAppletonBand.com, all one word. Yeah.
Okay. So before we go, we only have about 4 minutes here. Okay. And lessons learned. What advice would you like to impart out there to people who might be starting back into the music industry? Right. And getting a gig isn't that easy, especially if you're older or younger. I guess it doesn't matter what age you are. It's just not an easy time to get into, for some people to get into gigs because they're not well known. They haven't advertised. We don't know who they are. So what advice would you give them?
Honestly, don't sell out. No, seriously, be true to yourself. Play the type of music that you want to play, the type of music that makes you happy. Don't cave in to booking agents, and don't have people come up to you and say, well, you need to play Last Dance for Mary Jane by Tom Petty if you want to play at my club and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of that stuff going on.
Really?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, and I'll tell you, we could do a whole show about that. I feel bad for a lot of younger musicians out there, especially ones that are singer-songwriters, because there's not nearly as many places for them to play and for them to show off their art as there used to be when I was coming up. So I would say be true to yourself always. Play the kind of music that makes you happy. Get together with a group of people who shares the same goals that you have when it comes to what kind of music you want to play, and give it everything you got.
Good advice, Billy. Good advice. And in closing, we've got 2 minutes.
Okay.
What do you think is the most fun at a gig? What is the one thing that you enjoy the most when you have a gig, no matter how big or small it is?
Wow. There's a number of things that I love. I mean, interacting with the crowd. When you have a good crowd, interacting with them, seeing the looks on their faces and when they clap and smile and tell you how much they love what you're doing. That's just a gratification that you can't get anywhere else. And the other thing is doing the things in the studio that it takes to work out songs that you've worked out, seeing all that to come to fruition with the guys in your band on stage. That's awesome. I mean, being able to pull off a song that you worked on in the studio and seeing all that hard work come to fruition with your bandmates, you can't put a price on any of that stuff.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. One last comment, if you want to look on there, I'll have you read that one. Can you read it without your
No,
glasses? Do you
let's
have
see.
glasses? You-
Do I click on the comments?
No, it should automatically, if you click on it, you should see them all. Does it work for you?
Oh, here we go.
The very one at the very bottom came in at 258.
Oh, oh, from the Hot Rodster.
Yes.
Nice.
He says, great interview. I like that guy. Hi, Rodster.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting him sometimes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you'll enjoy him.
I see him on Facebook all the time and stuff, but him and I have never actually connected and,
Well, hopefully you will. So it is
Yeah.
now 1 o'clock. This hour went so fast. It always does. And I do want to thank you for showing up today. And I didn't know, you said you didn't know much about technology, but you clicked right in.
That's right. I did it all by myself.
You did, and you did great. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, very much. I appreciate you, and thank you so much for coming out to our gig the
You're
other night. I really
welcome.
appreciate it. That was nice.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you and your guy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, by the way, he's the sound man.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Yes. One last thing is, if you can get on after we're done, it takes a few minutes for all the comments to load up and whatever. But you
Okay.
might want to respond to some of the people that have commented today. You don't have to, but it's there for you if you do. I will
Okay.
be sending you the link for YouTube. In the meantime, good luck on your gigs, and I hope to catch you down the road when we can stay longer.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take
All right.
care.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody. So that does it for today. I want to remind everybody that there will be no show, no interview on next Monday, the 7th. That's my anniversary. We've been together 25 years. It's not official yet because we lived together for 1 year and said, if we can make it through a year, we could probably make it through a lifetime, and it did. So 25 years together on our anniversary on Monday, the 7th. Bye, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you down the road. Oh, you're back again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can end this broadcast.